Okay, it's one thing to prepare for effective communication when you think the others listening are willing parties. It's another when you are preparing for what you consider to be a difficult conversation. So let's get started. The very first thing I invite my clients to do when they say they have a difficult conversation is eliminate the word difficult. They're going to have a conversation. When you label it difficult, heavy, um, uncomfortable, you are feeding your brain information that then it will take as risk, and it will try to keep you safe, and it will look for danger, and it will task your nervous system. Let's just call it an important conversation, a clarifying conversation, a productive conversation. Just framing it differently can really shift your energy, and it's much more likely for you to, for yourself, achieve a better outcome. So when you say difficult conversation, I think we automatically relate that to conflict. So what if this was a conversation about clarity and not conflict? So the first thing you're going to want to do when you're preparing for your conversation about your productive conversation is get really clear on your intention. Know what you want and why you want it. So is the purpose of this conversation clarity, resolution, understanding? If you've watched the previous slide deck about effective conversations, you know that you need to decide if you are there to influence, inspire, inform, or inquire. Very similar here. So let's assume that you're going to be doing a little bit of inquiring and informing. You want to be very clear, resolute, and understand what your mission is, and then make it clear for the other person, right? Also pre-decide, like, what will determine if this was a successful conversation. Will it be that the person changes their behavior? Will it be that you feel in integrity? Will it be that the energy level stayed pretty even keel? There can be lots of different ways to measure whether it was a success or not. And then when you're preparing for the conversation, you always want to pull out all the facts of the situation. So instead of you've got a bad attitude, it's I've noticed that you are rolling your eyes during the meetings. Very different. You're not making any assumptions. You're observing something and making the other person aware of that. So you want to pull out any thought or feeling and put that aside and focus on the facts. I've noticed that you are routinely 10 to 20 minutes late for work each day. Very different than you're always running behind. That's an interpretation, right? Then you also want to check your motive. There you go. Are you there to connect with the person, to coach the person, to support the person, or are you there to control the person? Because if you think you're there to control the person, spoiler alert, not possible. There's no possibility of you controlling the other person. And then I want you to think, I love this final question. What do I want for me from this conversation, for them, and for this relationship? That partnered with the how will I define success will go a long way towards you not being impulsive and reactive during the conversation, but very thoughtful, measured, focused, clear. So the next thing I want you to do is regulate your body before the conversation. So you want to first manage your mind. We've already talked about one of the ways of managing your mind is removing the adjective difficult. Another is to be very thoughtful about how you're going to measure success, what the purpose of the conversation is, just focus on the facts. And then when it comes to regulation, you want to breathe deeply, calmly, name what you're feeling. If you feel a bit of nervousness, a bit of worry, a bit of dread, name it, just feel it all the way through. You have survived 100% of all the feelings you have felt before. What you don't want to do is not allow that feeling to be present and to resist it or react to it or numb it. There's a whole section, there is a slide deck and also an extra video, a few on feelings if you want some more information about that. And then you want to practice the conversation in a neutral tone. Go ahead while you're driving in your car, in the shower, or maybe on a walk. Practice how you're going to open the conversation, keeping a very calm, neutral tone. Then You want to decide to remain curious and open and not defensive. Defensive is going to be more reactive, right? You feel a certain way and then your action is defensiveness. If you are remaining curious, like, I want to feel curious throughout this conversation. By the end of the conversation, I want to have more data points. I want to understand better why A, B, C, or D happen, right? And then when you've decided that you want to feel curious, you want to decide what thought is going to create the feeling of curious. I'm here to gather information. I'm here to learn all the different sides of this situation. I also love the phrase calm is contagious. I really do think it is. You know, you've heard that when teachers lower their voice and start to speak more slowly, the classroom tends to mirror that and just slow their pace and lower their voice levels. So your audience of one or many is more likely to match your energy if you remain calm. It doesn't mean that you've got any control over that. They might be very defensive or very sad or very confused or very worried, and they're going to have a more maybe taxed nervous system or show their energy a little differently than how you're showing yours. That's okay. So I kind of keep using all these words, right? That you stay neutral, you want to be calm. Calm is contagious. You want to show up grounded, not guarded, so that you are open, transparent, you are being truthful, you're being curious. You have not pre-decided anything. You're not coming from any assumptions. You're coming from facts. So much more powerful when it comes to having that conversation. And then next, and this is what I find to be what we need to practice the most with when I'm working with a client, is just to be direct and kind. Say what is true, and always from your perspective. Okay. I statement share the perspective, not the blame, not you shouldn't have done that, or you were late with that report, or you aren't to speak to that person that way. That's all actually very coming from a bit more of a controlling stance and reveals a bit of emotional immaturity on your part. What you want to do is set the boundaries for yourself and for the situation, the relationship. And again, not blame. So things like, I noticed, I wonder, I understand, I want your perspective. These are going to be things that are coming from what you have control over. You have control over wondering. And then we're going to go back to the facts that you had isolated before you even began the conversation. You're going to talk about the facts. And again, let's say something like, I noticed you roll your eyes when so-and-so said something, instead of, I noticed that you're constantly dismissing other people's ideas. They might not even know they're rolling their eyes. They literally might not even know this. So you want to call attention to what the facts are. You want to avoid anecdotes or assumptions, like I just said. You don't want to be mind reading, right? So an anecdote would be, well, so-and-so said that you said so-and-so. It's a little bit gossipy anyway, right? Actually, it's completely gossipy, but that's what I mean by an anecdote, right? Or just taking a little piece of what you saw something happen and not putting it in context. You always want to include pauses. You are not rushing this conversation. Please don't plan a conversation that you intend to be productive for a condensed period of time. If you think you need 30 minutes, book 45. If you think you need 5 minutes, book 15. You want time for space to be present, for pausing, for silence, for truly, truly listening and asking questions and letting those questions be answered thoroughly and calmly, or however, by the other person. And then, am I speaking from ownership and honesty or hurt? So that's if this difficult conversation that's now just a productive conversation is one where you want to say, this really hurt my feelings. This is what I'm angry about. You want to take 100% responsible for your feelings in that situation, your thoughts in that situation, your actions in that situation, right? And if you come from a place of 100% responsibility, you will remain curious, and you will be far more likely to meet the person halfway, or even more than halfway, and resolve whatever it is you need to resolve, and or just get even more clear on what your expectations are, what your boundaries are, what theirs are, and how you want to proceed. So I love this chapter. I can't recall which of the 7 habits it is in Stephen Covey's book, but it's seek first to understand, not to be understood. And I just really loved that particular chapter in that book. And I love to think about that a lot as well. I got my degree in counseling mostly because I wanted to improve my listening. I wanted to be coming from a place of no judgment, listen for what wasn't being said, et cetera, et cetera. So you want to make sure that you are coming from a place of understanding the other person, not coming from a place of competition, like you're going to win. I'm going to get that person. That probably won't be productive. It will be a conversation and it might be very conflicting, but it won't probably be productive. So as I mentioned previously, you want to let them respond fully. You want to allow for pauses. You don't want to interrupt them, or rather, let's not interrupt them, okay? You might want to interrupt them. You're not going to. You're going to pre-decide how you show up. It's going back to what we talked about before about how you're going to lay out the facts of the situation, what your voice level is going to be, how often you're going to pause. Breathe deeply, model breathing deeply, model the silence, model the pausing, being comfortable in those moments. I mean, reflect back what you hear them say. And it's always, you've probably heard this in negotiating, if you ever saw that. There was a really good masterclass on this. You want to find some common ground. We both can agree on this. It sounds like we both want the same thing for this team. You can think of, there's lots of examples, right? Again, I'm trying to keep this as generalized as possible. And then you don't have to come to total agreement on whatever this situation is. And I realize this could be any situation when I'm talking very globally about a productive conversation. But you want to summarize the next steps very, very clearly. If this is a situation where you are supervising someone, you want to write, and the conversation is letting them know they need a different outcome. You are expecting a different outcome from them, whether it's behavioral or skill level outcome. You want to write everything down with them in real time about what is expected next. And you want to put timestamps on that. You want them to be returning to you to let you that. You want them to return to you to let you know what progress they're making. It's not like you're like the nagger or you're the checking. You're going to be checking in on them. They're responsible. That you are modeling 100% responsibility so that they have that as well. And then how will you know you understand each other? Not agree with, but comprehend. That's going to be up to you to figure out. And in that moment, it will be in every moment, it will be different, right? As to how you'll know. But certainly one of the ways is to ask. Is just to ask, to be curious, like, what are you taking away from this conversation? This is what I'm taking away from this conversation. This is what I plan to do moving forward. What do you plan to do moving forward? Okay, it goes back to the subtitle that you're leading with and ending the conversation with curiosity and care, not with control or direction necessarily. Not that direction is a negative, but so that all can go very, very well. Wrap it up in a nice bow. Both of you understand where the other person stands. There's a plan in place to A, B, or C, whatever it is that you are, whatever the outcome is that you are asking for from the person, or seeking, I guess I should say. But what do you do when the person with whom you're in conversation is resistant? And it goes back to that centeredness, that focus, that calm, connectedness, not combativeness. You want to stay in complete and total emotional maturity. They stop listening when the other person gets really reactive and is mirroring back their negative energy and their defensiveness. And so it is just not a useful exercise to have those conversations. Validate emotions like, I can see this feels frustrating for you. I understand that this is new information for you, or that this is creating some worry in you. I see that you're feeling like you've been misunderstood. Whatever it is, you want to actually name it. Be very present with the person. They're a human being. And this might be a complete and total surprise to them. And then continue with your curious questions. What is hardest about this right now? What are you most worried about? What do you fear in this situation? What's the biggest obstacle? And certainly, how may I assist you? How may I help you? How may I support you? So you're going to still keep that steady focus. You're not coming in with like rocky music in the back, like you're about to win and beat someone to the finish line. And you just want to continue to stay steady. And I just mentioned that earlier, but I'll say it again because this last bullet, how can you stay steady even if they can't? It's okay. You have no control over their reaction to any of this, but you have far more influence on them if you do model focus, calm, collaboration, curiosity, a lot of C words, I guess. So here's the overview. What kind of a leader do you want to be remembered at in this moment? This is such a good question. I love to ask myself this in another another variation of this question is, who do I want to be in this moment? So in this case, if you're a leader of your family, of your community, of your work, then what kind of leader do you want to be remembered for in this interaction? Number one, I can't say it enough times, you want to model emotional regulation. People will mirror your calm more than your words. So say what you want to say in a calm way. Say it slowly, say it deliberately. Please don't say it in any kind of like superior, arrogant way. It's not going to land and it won't be heard. You want to set the tone early. So I want this to be a productive, respectful conversation. You lay that out at the very beginning. This is my expectation for our time together. We have 15 minutes. These are the facts of the situation. I'd like to learn a little bit more about your perspective on this. And I'm going to begin with some questions. Assume positive intent. Man, do I love this. You know how our brain, when we overthink something, it leans negative, and that's to protect us. It's to sort of, again, seek out or identify all the risks, all the dangers involved out there. But what if you just turned that part of your brain, or at least you lowered her volume and got really curious and thought the other person must have, or I will assume that the other person is coming from a very positive place, a respectful place, a productive place as well. They might not, but going in with that assumption is way better than, oh, I bet they're going to be really ticked when I start to talk about this and they're probably going to get defensive, right? And then when you assume positive intent, you're staying out of judgment, you're leaning into curiosity. Okay, the next is separate performance from behavior. Anyone who's a parent has learned this before, right? You always say, I didn't like that action as opposed to you're bad. You want to isolate the behavior if that's something that you're talking about that's the difficult, or the outcome that you're having the discussion about, instead of the person. So it's not that you're lazy or you are so assertive. It's in this moment, this conversation grew to be a bit more aggressive than was really necessary or welcome in that setting. That's it. Not that you are a certain person. It's that this behavior was this. And then close with connection. Thank them for engaging. I appreciate you talking this through with me. Always important. Close it together. Go back to the other slides though to see also like what is your takeaway in this moment? Although takeaway is kind of a cheesy word, isn't it? But what are you where are you right now? What are you focusing on right now? What is your next step moving forward? When can we check in about this again? What else do I need to know? Okay. So, I blocked myself. So again, not a difficult conversation, a productive conversation, a curious conversation. Words have power, and we're going to make sure that we tap into the power of the word. If you find yourself having to have this without any preparation, it's best to start to read things like this before you even need them, before you even are going into a conversation that could be a little bit loaded or difficult. Read about conversations. Consider ways you want to be an effective communicator, whether there's some confronting that's going to be going on or not, selling, promoting, whatever it might be, right? So, but you're going to notice, and in both of the slides, if you watch the other one as well, it is about you being very mature, very calm, staying in behind your red velvet rope, what you have complete and total control over, and staying curious. Leave the assumptions at the door. Leave the bias, leave the stories you're telling yourself at the door. Come in as a beginner and be ready to listen with all parts of your body. Every bit of you is there to listen and to learn, and then to respond. Okay? I hope this helps you diffuse any stress you might have about any upcoming conversation.